Are you manifesting from force or from faith? That is the question here, because if you've been on a manifestation journey for a while now, you've probably experienced the difference between these two styles of manifestation, which one is being forceful and the other being led by faith. And I can personally say there has been the most profound shift on my manifestation journey in terms of how I feel on a day-to-day basis, as well as how things manifest into my life. Now that I know the difference between manifesting from force and manifesting from faith. So on today's episode of That's So Rich, we are going to be peeling back the layers of at least my experience with manifesting from force and manifesting from faith, so you can understand where you're at right now and how you can realign yourself with that energy of faith so that manifestation becomes a hell of a lot easier for you. What's up, and welcome to the That's So Rich podcast, the show that's redefining wealth and helping you manifest a life that is rich in every single way. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, transformation coach, manifestation expert, and spiritual guide, and together we're going to create your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. I'm so happy you're here. Let's do this thing. Y'all, I am so excited to talk to you about today's topic because hands down, this has been one of the most transformative shifts I've noticed for myself over the course of 2024, but also in the years prior to that. I caught myself big time in a pattern of force this year, and during that period of force, it literally felt like my entire life was like crumbling around me, and it was almost like a protection mechanism. I think that all of us have our old patterns and things that come up as protection mechanisms because those are the things that we had done for so many years prior, especially if you are not new to your intentional manifestation journey or the inner work or any of those things. There's a lot of patterns, there's a lot of conditioning that you've worked through, but ultimately when things aren't going the way that you want them to, it's really easy to get back into those old patterns and conditioning because that's essentially what you created as a safety mechanism in some sort of capacity growing up. And therefore, we return to them really easily. And so one thing I want to preface with going into this conversation is that if you're finding yourself in a space of force when it comes to your manifestations, it's not something to beat yourself up for. It's more so something to recognize that there's a part of you that's feeling unsafe. And because you are feeling unsafe, you're stepping into that role of force as opposed to faith. Because the foundation of faith, a lot of the times, is a level of safety inside of yourself to be able to surrender over that control and step into trusting that the divine is guiding, loving, and protecting you no matter how things are playing out in your life. So I have been very intentionally reflecting on the big difference of forcing my manifestations into my life or operating from the energy of force. That's something that the first year of my intentional manifestation journey, second year, I was very, very deep in was this energy of force because that's the only way that I had known how to create results in my life at that point. Whereas the last few years, I've been so deep in this space of connecting to my faith and have seen manifestation become so much easier because of that. And just want to talk about the major differences between the energy of force versus the energy of faith when it comes to your manifestations, as well as how to take yourself into the energy of faith with your manifestations if you currently find yourself in that energy of force, because once you're out of that energy of force, you're going to notice just how much more fun this all becomes. Because I think that a lot of the times manifestation can suddenly feel like, oh, well, this isn't that fun. Why the hell am I doing this? If you are not operating from the energy of faith. So we're going to dive straight into that. But before we do, I just want to say if you are ready to get serious about your manifestations. And when I say serious, I mean seriously operating from this energy of faith and knowing that you are capable of having, being, and doing whatever it is that you desire in 2025, I want to invite you to apply to the Abundant AF Babe Academy. This is my signature online manifestation program that is specifically designed to help you manifest more money, abundance, freedom, and fulfillment. And this is a program that over 500 women have walked through and been able to completely transform their life and finances because of. And the Abundant AF Babe Academy, I would say, is like your one-stop shop for everything that we talk about inside of this podcast episode, where you are actually learning how to move and operate from trusting your own internal guidance system, as well as connecting to the divine, God, source, spirit, whatever it is that you want to call it, as opposed to feeling as though you're constantly outsourcing what judgments, opinions, things that you should be doing, not be doing to all of these gurus that you see online or whatever it may be. This is where you learn how to be truly the center of your manifestations and trust that you are capable of creating the life that you desire. So I'm currently enrolling for January of 2025. This episode is coming out in the last 2 weeks of 2024. So if you're wanting to claim your spot for 2025, January 2025, and hit the ground running and be like, let's go, let's manifest my best life in 2025, hit the link down below in the show notes to apply to the Abundant AF Babe Academy, and let's have a conversation to see if this is the perfect fit for you. But with that being said, like I promised, I want to talk about the major differences between manifesting from force first, and then we'll talk about faith. So what I've noticed for myself and what I've noticed through coaching hundreds of women is that when you are manifesting from force, you are operating from the energy of being rushed, being panicked, being so attached to the outcome, and that coming from a lack of trust or a lack of safety, either internally or in the divine, in the universe, in the fact that everything is unfolding in your favor. If you find yourself in this place where you are constantly noticing that you're feeling a sense of anxiety surrounding your manifestations, or that you are worrying that your manifestations are not going to show up by the timeline that you want them to, that is 110% a sign that you are operating from the energy of force. And one thing that I love to remind myself of when those moments come up for me is saying that one of my beautiful friends, Mariah, always says to me, which is, you are never rushed and you are never punished. If there is something that you feel rushed with, then you are assuming that you are going to be punished if you do not get the result. But the reality is, especially when you deepen your connection to faith and operate from the energy of faith, you are never rushed and you are never punished. So that is the first thing. Second is that you feel like you're hustling, you're grinding, you're making shit happen from an energy that feels really constricting. So when I say constricting, I actually, even with my body, like start to curl over. It feels like you're closed off. It feels like there isn't space for you to explore or to change the way in which you're doing things. There's almost this like rigidity that comes along with this energy of hustle and force. And if you find yourself in this, I want you to know that that's really common, especially in our society, especially here in the United States. And I know specifically here in New York City, there's a big energy of that. And this energy is something that we're almost conditioned to step into when you become a part of the workforce, where you're hustling, you're going, you're making shit happen, but oftentimes that energy doesn't feel very expansive. It doesn't feel aligned. It doesn't feel supportive. And because of that, it's draining your energy. And one of the things that y'all hear me say on the podcast all of the time is that it's not so much the action that matters, but instead the energy behind the action. And if you're showing up with your actions from this energy of hustle, grinding, making shit happen, and it not feeling expansive to you, because I do believe that you can hustle, you can grind, you can make shit happen in an expansive energy. But if it's feeling constrictive, if it feels like you're closing off, if it feels like it's unaligned or unsupportive for you, then that's a sign that you are manifesting from the energy of force. Third one is that you have a pressure for things to turn out in a certain way or on a certain timeline. Oftentimes, people become so attached to what it is that they are manifesting because there is some sort of meaning that they are assigning to it, that if they don't get that thing, then they have failed, or they are going to be judged, or they are not good enough, or whatever it may be. And when you're assigning those meanings and you're operating with this pressure of things needing to turn out a certain way, you are, one, pushing that manifestation actually further away from you because there's energy of resistance or desperation or need and lack surrounding it. And two, you're forming these unhealthy attachments to the external thing that you're trying to manifest, which with those unhealthy attachments, again, it pushes it further away from you because essentially you're in that energy of lack. Whereas when you can release the attachment to it needing to be a certain way, and this is something we'll talk about in the energy of manifesting from faith, you open yourself up to receiving in many more aligned ways than you could currently imagine for yourself. And one of the things that I want to throw in there with like this pressure for things to turn out a certain way, the need for things to be a certain way is 110% this energy of lack, because there's a lack of trust in the fact that things could be even better than you imagined, when in reality, our human perception of how things can go is so limited. And oftentimes we keep ourselves in these boxes because we think that our way is the best way, when in reality, there is a far more aligned, far more supportive, far better reality that could unfold for you if you were to loosen your grip on control and open yourself up to the fact that it doesn't need to look a certain way. So that is number 3. Number 4 is that you are attaching your worth or your perception of self to the outcome of your manifestations. This is a huge one, and this is oftentimes the number one reason that somebody is manifesting from the energy of force in the first place, is because there's this subconscious or unconscious story that they're telling themselves that if they do not manifest what it is that they want, then that means that they're not good enough, that means that they're not smart enough, that means that they're not skinny enough, pretty enough, whatever it may be, enough, and or having a tainted perception of yourself, again, that you're a failure, or that because you didn't manifest the thing that you wanted to in the specific way that you wanted to, then that means something negative about yourself. And that's completely false. And I think that this is, again, hands down the number one thing that comes into majority of our lives when you're manifesting from this energy of force. And I'll use myself as an example. When I was going through a really challenging period of time this year, I was talking about this on the last podcast episode. It was because I was not increasing my income in the way that I had in the past. And because I wasn't able to break through this glass ceiling in terms of my income, I then was changing the perception that I had about myself to mean something negative. And that energy of force, or that energy of lack, it really was, of me then showing up, trying to hustle harder, make more shit happen, listen to advice from people that I didn't really resonate with their advice, but they were further ahead than me in business. And outsourcing my power to try and get this result, all because it was tied up in my perception of self and how I was deeming myself to be worthy. And so I want to offer that example because a lot of the times we can so easily fall into this pattern where we are wanting to manifest something because we're telling ourselves subconsciously or unconsciously, if you don't manifest it, then it means something negative, bad, or wrong about you. And that is, again, 110% this energy of force. And in a moment, I'm going to break down why the energy of force isn't the most supportive to manifestation. You absolutely can manifest from the energy of force, but it's not the most aligned or supportive way to do it. But that is number 4. Number 5 is that you are being more invested in the outcome of your manifestation than you are in the journey. And I want you to take a moment and be really honest with yourself, checking in as you're listening to this podcast episode, and ask yourself if you're more attached to the outcome of having your manifestation than you are the process and the journey of getting there. Because again, I would say this kind of rivals the number one that I was talking about a moment ago, is that people start an intentional manifestation journey because they're not happy with where it is that they are, and they want to be somewhere else with the false promise that wherever that thing is going to be better than where they currently are. And the reason I say a false promise is because if you are not enjoying the journey to get to the result of your manifestation, you're not going to enjoy that manifestation. And again, I can speak from firsthand experience with this. One of the examples that y'all have heard me talk about on the podcast with this is that the first year of starting my business, I was so obsessed with the idea of manifesting my first $100,000. And so I hustled, I grinded, I made shit happen. I operated from this energy of force, not 100% of the time. And I just want to sidestep for a moment and say that in everything that I'm talking about, you may not be operating from the energy of force 100% of the time. I'm not operating from force 100% of the time, but there's moments that I catch myself in the energy of force when it comes to my manifestations, and that's when I am like, oh, okay, whoa, okay, I'm gonna celebrate the fact that I've caught myself in this. I'm not gonna beat myself up for the fact that I've been beating myself up, essentially, and I'm going to reassess and realign. It's not so black and white with like, you're either doing this 100% of the time or you're not. Same is true for operating from the energy of faith. You may not operate from the energy of faith 100% of the time. And I just want to talk about that for a moment, because I think that a lot of the times when it comes to listening to podcasts or reading personal development books or going to workshops or seminars or whatever it may be, there's this really extreme perception or belief that comes into place that's like, if I'm not doing this 100% of the time, then I'm fucking up my manifestations. Or if I'm doing this 100% of the time, then that's the right thing to do, or whatever it may be. And it's like, being at 100% of the time is impossible, whether that be force or faith. And so just having this level of awareness surrounding these things and being brutally honest with yourself, so that in the moments that you do find yourself in the energy of force, that you then can realign yourself with faith. And so going back to my story, essentially when I first started my business, I was so obsessed with making my first $100,000 that I didn't necessarily enjoy the process of getting there. I was so forward focused and I was so in this energy of force, and I don't blame myself for this. I don't shame myself for this. I was essentially moving from like living in complete survival mode for many, many years to trying to get out of survival mode, but I didn't enjoy the process of getting to that place. And then once I manifested my first $100,000, I thought that all of my troubles were going to go away. I thought that this was like this magical moment where the sky was going to go open up and God was going to be like, hey, you made it, not to heaven, but like to heaven on earth. And it wasn't. It was a moment where I definitely had more money sitting in the bank account, but I then was like, wait, nothing's different. And I didn't enjoy a lot of those moments where I was forcing and hustling and whatnot. And so recognizing again that if you are so much more invested in the outcome of your manifestation than you are in the process of getting to that place and enjoying the journey and knowing that the outcome may change, then that's a sign that you're operating from the energy of force as well. And then the last one that I have for you is that you're turning manifestation into a chore as opposed to a privilege. This is one of the things that I hear from the women inside of my community so often, is that manifestation often turns into a chore of like, oh, well, what do I need to do? And if I didn't do it, then I'm not going to manifest what it is that I want into my life, and so on and so forth. And if manifestation and getting to where it is that you quote unquote want to be starts to feel as though it's a chore as opposed to a privilege, that's an opportunity for you to check yourself on your perception and the way that you are perceiving your life, and the opportunity that you have to use manifestation as a tool to better it and realign with faith, which then stepping into this next piece of identifying what it's like to be manifesting from the energy of faith. I have another 6. So those were 6 of the force. I have another 6 on how to manifest from the energy of faith, or what it's like to be manifesting from the energy of faith. And then we'll talk about just a few key things that you can do to get from force to faith. I also want to apologize for all of the loud ass sirens, and also if you can hear the vacuum that's going in the hallway of my apartment. If you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me say it by now, but New York City is fucking loud to live in. Regardless, I love this place so much, but I'm sure you guys are like, whoa, there's a lot of sirens going on. Yep, there is. New York City, baby. Okay, diving into manifesting from faith. So the first sign that you are manifesting from faith is that you have a deep connection to the universe, God, source, spirit, your higher self, your intuition. And I want to list all of those out because for me, like I've shared on the podcast, it's God. But for you, it may be the universe. And if it's not the universe, it may be source. And if it's not source, it may be your higher self. It may be your intuition. And if you're just starting to get into the arena of understanding or playing around with the energy of faith, I encourage you to look at it through the lens of just you connecting with your higher self, or you connecting with your intuition. Because perhaps you've gone through things in the past where God or the universe or some higher power has felt off or iffy to you. And in rebuilding that faith, you can always reconnect to this higher version of yourself and your intuition as the starting points, and know that with that journey of connecting to yourself, you will be expanded into greater levels of faith. And then number 2 is that you're trusting that everything is turning out better than you could ever imagine, even and especially when it doesn't feel like it. So one of the silliest things that we do as humans is we like to put labels on things of, oh, this isn't going the way that it's supposed to, or this is going the way that it's supposed to. Oh, that's bad that that happened, or oh, that's good that that happened. When in reality, we have such a limited perception of what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is working for us, what is not working for us. And because of that limited perception, we then kind of will take ourselves out of this place of believing in the fact that it's all unfolding perfectly. And I can look back and so clearly see that all of the times in my life where it felt like it wasn't working out in my favor, it actually was. I just had to go through some sort of learning experience or season in order to get to the place that I needed to be able to not only manifest what I wanted, but something so much greater than that. And it's actually so cool. I was having this conversation with one of my clients named Julie the other day, and she was saying the same thing because she was experiencing a lot of fear, and that fear is oftentimes the ego's last line defense to try and keep you small and try to stop you from going to the next level. And so after our call, she sat down and she did some reflection, and she was like, oh, every single time I've been in a position similar to this, where the ego's gotten really loud, where fear's been really loud, it was right as I was on the brink of a breakthrough. And I can use that as evidence in the fact that even when it doesn't feel like things are working out, they actually are. And so that's what I mean by this trust that everything is working out better than you could have ever imagined. I have the tattoo on my arm, the better it gets, the better it gets, because I'm just a firm believer that regardless of what is happening in my life, it's happening on purpose. And that if I can continue to lean into faith, then I will be led to something so much greater. Also, one of my favorite affirmations, if you guys, again, have listened to the podcast, you'll have heard me say this before, but I'm a firm believer that best case scenario gets to be the inevitable for my life. Because then again, regardless of the situation that I'm in, whether it feels pleasant or unpleasant, I know and I trust that best case scenario is the inevitable for my life, and there's no if, ands, or buts surrounding that, which then allows manifestation to unfold so much more naturally. So that is number 2. Number 3 is slowing down to be present, receive divine guidance, and act from inspiration. So this is very counterintuitive to what hustle culture and the Western systems and societies teach us to do, which is just go, 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 make shit happen, then numb yourself out at the end of the day and do it all over again. And unfortunately, that is what we're kind of posed to do, when in reality, this is the most intuitive thing that you can do, which is slowing down to be present, being present with your life, even those moments that don't feel so great, not numbing yourself out from them. Because when you numb yourself out from them, you are essentially then prolonging the experience, because we have to feel that in whatever way, oftentimes to be able to then create the change that you're wanting to see, or to receive that divine guidance that's going to help you act from inspiration and take your life to the next level. Oftentimes people keep themselves in uncomfortable situations so much longer than they have to be, because they're actually just numbing themselves out to it as opposed to being fully present with it. And so slow yourself down. Even if you're in a season that you're not really loving, slow yourself down to be with it. Notice what's there for you. Call on divine guidance. Ask for that divine guidance. And then once you receive it, act from inspiration, follow your intuition, give yourself permission to maybe not do what's always logical or practical, but instead what feels good to you and is going to allow you to feel like a better version of yourself. Because when you're feeling like that better version of yourself, you're making more inspired decisions. So that is number 3. Number 4 is releasing the expectation that things need to turn out a certain way, and instead building a deep trust in the fact that regardless of what happens, it's going to be perfect for you. So this kind of ties into what we were talking about from when you're manifesting from the energy of force. You're so obsessed, or you put so much pressure on things turning out a certain way. This is flipping that on its head and releasing the expectation that things need to turn out a certain way, and allowing the universe, God, source, spirit to help you through the steps to have things turn out the way that they're divinely meant to, knowing that it's either going to be what you want or something greater. Number 5 is releasing the worthiness that you attach to your manifestations, not questioning your worthiness, knowing that your worthiness cannot be swayed, that it was already predetermined by the divine when you incarnated into this human body, and knowing and owning your worth, not in this like cocky ego way, but in this like humble, deep knowing way. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the times when people talk about like owning your worthiness, it's then like shouting it from the rooftops or like blasting it out in this way. And if that feels authentic to you, fuck yeah, sis, go for it, do it, love it. But something that I've discovered for myself, and I've never felt more worthy or more whole inside of myself, is just knowing that because I am a daughter of God, because I am an extension of the universe, I am worthy. I don't have to justify it. I don't have to talk about it. I don't have to share it in ways that makes people realize or proves my worthiness. Instead, it's just this deep knowing of like, yeah, I'm worthy. And therefore, in the manifestation process, because I'm worthy, I can have whatever it is that I want. I can have whatever it is that God has decided for me. And knowing, and one thing that I want to throw in there is that a lot of times people have this perception that they have to prove something to the universe, or that they have to prove something to God in order for God to deem them as worthy for their manifestation. And that couldn't be further than the truth. Like, that is the grossest thing in the world to me. That is a bunch of bullshit, because if you are already worthy in the eyes of the divine, which you are, you have nothing to prove. Actually connecting deeper to your faith is the antidote to hustle culture, and is the antidote to this pressure, this force, this hustle, because there's nothing to prove. You are already worthy. You are already good enough. So stepping into that and owning that, knowing that there's nothing to prove to the divine, and just allowing this divine essence to give you and help you through all of the things that you're wanting to receive and manifest into your life. Because that divine energy, the energy of God, the energy of the universe, again, source, spirit, whatever you call it, that is the energy of unconditional love. That is the energy of unconditional support. That is the energy of unconditional guidance. That's all that it is. It is unconditional. It is not something that you need to prove. And so if there's any part of you that feels as though, oh, okay, well, I need to do X, Y, and Z in order to prove to the universe that I am worthy of receiving my manifestations, or I am worthy of breaking that cycle, not true. That is some gross patriarchal bullshit that you've been fed. That is not inherently true. The inherent truth of God, the universe, source, spirit, is that it is the energy of unconditional love. You have nothing to prove. So stepping into that energy, your worthiness is not in question. And then lastly, number 6 is that when you are in the energy of manifesting from faith, you are feeling your manifestations be a natural byproduct of you living with an open heart and following your intuition. As simple as that. It's not this process where you have to sit down and you need to journal a certain amount of things, or say a certain amount of affirmations, or meditate for a certain amount of time every day, or another thing to check off your to-do list. Like I was talking about in this energy of manifesting from the energy of force, it starts to feel like a chore, as opposed to when you are manifesting from the energy of faith, it's just a natural part of your day-to-day rhythm. It's just a part of what happens by you living and existing and being who you are. Manifestation is naturally unfolding because you are living from an open heart and you're following your intuition. You're following that divine guidance. And so, like I was mentioning, now let's talk about how you can actually get there. There are a few different things that I want to list out with it, but like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast episode, this is what we dive so deep into inside of the Abundant AF Babe Academy. And it's less of a, okay, let me hear it on a podcast. And inside of the academy, it's like, let me integrate this on this cellular level of my body by releasing all of these blockages that have been putting me into the energy of force and replacing them with this energy of faith so that I can move forward in a way that is only unique to me and that no personal development guru or Instagram post or TikTok video or YouTube or podcast or whatever it may be can tell me how to do, because it's only something that I can determine for myself. And that's the beautiful thing about the Abundant AF Babe Academy that I haven't seen in any of the other manifestation resources out there online, is that it's never going to be okay, this is what you do and you have to do this in order to manifest what it is that you want into your life. It's helping you become your own guru. It's helping you become your own healer. It's helping you be your own internal guidance system and operate so fully from this energy of faith, because I can't tell you how to manifest. I can't tell you the blueprint of your soul. I can't tell you how to get from point A to point B. I can only help you uncover how to do that inside of yourself. And that's why I think the clients that I've worked with inside of the Abundant AF Babe Academy don't only see results inside of the program, but they continue to see it in the years following and continue to manifest greater and greater things, because it's never okay, follow this process. It's always let's help you trust yourself and trust the divine on such a deep level that you do not have to rely on all of the external noise to try and determine what's the best move for you next. So, like I said, if this is all resonating with you and you're ready to take take your life to the next level in 2025, go click down below in the show notes right now as you're listening to the rest of this podcast episode and apply to the Abundant AF Babe Academy. We're currently enrolling for January of 2025. So let's do it, girl. Let's make it happen. Go click the link down below in the show notes. And lastly, I'm going to wrap this up because I know that this is getting long. These are just going to be more so bullet points on how you can step into this space. And then after you listen to it, you can come on board for the Abundant AF Babe Academy and really make it happen in your life. But how you get from force to faith, one is by deepening your relationship to God. Last night, I was on a coaching call with one of my clients, and she said, I want to deepen my connection to my manifestations. And I said, okay, well, what does that mean to you? And she said, every single time I ask myself that question and I close my eyes and I meditate and I think on the inner work that we're doing here, everything that comes up for me is that it means more faith and it means more trust. And I got full body chills because the thing that I was going to say to her was that if you want to deepen your relationship to your manifestations, you must deepen your relationship to God, the universe, source, spirit, because it naturally happens when you are connected to that energy in a space of faith. And so she already had that internal wisdom inside of herself and was able to pull it up and out. And so that is number one of how to get there, is deepening your relationship to the divine. Second is deepening your relationship to yourself, getting to know yourself, getting to love yourself, getting to peel back the layers on all of the shit that disconnects you from feeling like the happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest version of yourself. Because when those inner blockages, the mental, emotional, or energetic blockages are gone, then you're able to, again, fully operate from this energy of faith versus force. So that is the second thing. Third thing is creating deep internal safety. Because when you're not feeling safe inside of yourself, there's this tendency to control. So like we were talking about in all of those things about forcing your manifestations, that's really just saying that you want control of the situation because there's something inside of you that doesn't feel safe to surrender that control. By creating deep internal safety, and y'all hear me talk about this on the podcast all the time, you're able to surrender that control. And when you surrender the control, you open your hands up to receive the blessings that the universe has been trying to give to you. So that is number 3. Number 4 is releasing the labels of good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative. We were talking about this in Manifesting from Faith because we have such a limited perception of what good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative actually is. And oftentimes the things that feel the worst that are happening in your life are leading you to your greatest blessing. So it's not to say like, love those seasons, but it's to say that you do not have the say of whether that's good, bad, right, wrong. And then when you can drop the labels surrounding good and bad, or right or wrong, or positive and negative, and just allow yourself to experience it again through this energy of faith, then you will be led to greater things than you could have ever imagined. Number 5 is giving yourself permission to explore and try new things. I know that sounds so simple, but sometimes the most simple things is what creates the greatest breakthroughs for us. So when you are operating from force, you oftentimes don't allow yourself to explore, to play, to go out and try new things because there's this belief that if you don't do things in a certain way, you're not going to get what you want. And again, that couldn't be further from the truth because oftentimes it's in the play and it's in expression in a way that you normally don't allow yourself to express, that you actually make new connections inside of yourself that allow you to operate from a more easeful and natural way to manifest what it is that you want into your life. Number 5 is listening to your own internal guidance system versus listening to what gurus or people online are telling you to do. I have such a bone to pick with all of these resources that are just consume as much as you possibly can. And through all of that, then you're going to have the path to get you to where you want to be. Because one of the biggest issues that we face as a society is overconsumption. There's this constant, incessant stream of information from everybody who is a guru in some way, shape, or form that is telling you to do something, and it disconnects you from your own internal guidance system and trusting that you already have the roadmap inside of yourself. And the more that you can disconnect from all of the external voices and turn into your internal voice and the voice of the divine that lives within you, because it quite literally lives within you, then you have everything that you need to get you to the place that you want to be. So that is what I have for you on this podcast episode in terms of what it's like to manifest from force, what it's like to manifest from faith, and how you can bridge the gap between manifesting from force to manifesting with faith. I genuinely cannot even put into words how different I feel inside of myself by manifesting from faith versus force. I guess the word that would come up is peace, genuine freedom, that everything is working out for me, and it just feels so damn good to be in that energy. So one last time saying it, if this podcast episode has resonated with you, click the link down below in the show notes to apply to the Abundant AF Babe Academy. We're currently enrolling for January of 2025. So if you know that you are done listening to how everybody is telling you should do things in your life to manifest what it is that you want, and you want to understand how to fully tune into your own internal guidance system and connect to the divine and your faith in a way that will allow you to naturally manifest not only what it is that you want, but things so much greater than that, then the Abundant AF Babe Academy was made for you. So that is down below in the show notes. I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast episode, and I will chat with you on the next one.